a lot of people are struggling with feeling close to God at times. I'm seeing this on social media posts, and I know I did when I was young. I for many years worked at a really trendy small restaurant where a lot of local musicians would hang out in Chicago, and I spent most of my free time and money and resources going to various music venues. I never played an instrument, but I definitely music was a big part of my life, and I really was always interested in new sounds and whatnot. So one of the biggest hindrances I would say to me really walking right with God was the influence of secular music for years because I had trouble letting that go. There's some good music on the radio, but if you're like me and you're trying to walk with God and you have yet to give up the secular music, I would suggest that you check out a few different artists and then look for playlists that those artists are on. I'm gonna go ahead and post some of my favorite artists that I've discovered in the notes. Very few, if any of them, ever are on Christian radio. And a lot of different genres, because that was the other thing I really like. I like hip hop. I like instrumental. I like very old music. I like a variety of sounds and genres. So I'm gonna hand that out because one of the main ways now, probably just the past couple years that I have found to help me to draw close to God is to just sit and worship Him in my apartment, even by myself. It's amazing how singing just to Jesus, when you're just lifting your voice, even if you don't have a good singing voice, really draw His presence close to you. And I prefer Spotify. That's just the site that I've used for many years now, and so I have some playlists there. If any of you want, you can look up some of my public playlists. I don't have that many, but I'll but I've got a few that really help me to that as well, in the notes. But what you do is then you sit and you can just the thing that I like about Spotify is they have the song lyrics in there as well, and so you can have your own little worship service to Jesus and just read the lyrics off while and sing to Him and focus just on the lyrics and on Him. Because one of the things about church is it can be full of distractions. It can be easy to during worship at church get distracted by everything else going on around in the atmosphere, whereas at home by yourself it's just you and Jesus. And so I just anyone who's struggling with intimacy with God, I recommend that. So the other thing is that a lot of people don't realize that they need to share their heart with Jesus. So whatever it is that you're struggling with, like, Lord, I don't feel worthy of you. I'm struggling with the sin over and over again, and I'm ready to give up on my faith because I feel like I'll never be good enough. I whatever it is, whatever the issue is, He already knows. But if you would just bring it to the surface, like share your heart with Him. Like, Lord, I don't feel close to you. I want to feel close to you. Show me how. Like, whatever your problem is, whatever the issue is that's keeping you from having a close walk with God, verbalize it. So just cry out, because He loves you. And the thing is, like, there's verses about bearing sin. I think it's one of the Psalms, like if you bury sin, it can't be healed. It can't be. So if you just keep going on your wicked ways, and feel like, what, forget it, I give up. I don't feel close to God. I'm not having an experience. Like, all these people are talking about all these amazing experiences with Jesus. I've never had one. And you start to draw away from the faith, and you start to, maybe stop attending church and just kind of starting to give up. That's the time to cry out to Jesus all the more and say, you know what, God, if you're real, if you are the Christ, if Jesus, you are God, please, I beg you, make yourself known to me in a mighty way. That's when to beg Him and plead Him for an experience. And the things that will hinder us from experiencing God are pride. That's a big one, because especially if you have a lot of judgment in your heart against God, which a lot of people do. The devil does a good job of getting our minds twisted that way, and so we have something really bad happen to us in life. We get abused, we get molested, or something, or somebody we love dies even though we prayed for them. Things like this can really cause people to quickly judge God, and you have to know that there's a lot of in my opinion, there's a lot of bad theology out there, where people are actually able to blame God because they say, well, He could have done something and He didn't. But the spiritual realm is complicated. And when you recognize the ability of generational curses to be in effect, of demonic altars to be in effect, of unrepentant sin, the consequences of that to be in effect, like, there's so many factors that can impact our lives and our reality. I mean, and we have enemies. There are a lot of witches and warlocks out there who are always looking for an opening to to destroy us or to lead us into early death as believers, especially if there's a calling on your life. If the bigger the calling on your life, the brighter your star, the more Satan is going to try to take you out early. He's going to try to do something to destroy your faith in God. And so it can be really, really hard in trying seasons. And that's just when you worship him in spite of it. You don't feel like worshiping him, you worship anyway. When I was suffering excruciating back pain, I had bugs crawling all over me in my basement apartment with the mattress on the floor, living in like basically abject poverty. And I had just gotten water baptized and told the Lord, like, I will serve you no matter what. Now you just got to show me how to do this walk. The only things that I knew I couldn't complain. I knew I had to fight to stay grateful and to worship him in spite of all my circumstances. And so what I did was I literally said, thank you, Lord, for this pillow. Thank you that I have a roof over my head. Thank you that I have warm clothes I can wear. My apartment was freezing cold, so I had to wear lots of layers even in my own apartment. But I just had to look around and say, look at, whatever the thing. And I just kept picking every little thing I could. Everything I could. And you know what? After about 10 or 12 things, I started to feel uplifted. Now, most people around me outside of my own apartment would have, looked at my life and said, "Oh my gosh, that's horrible." But it doesn't matter because I had to fight the enemy's attacks to get me in a depressive, downtrodden, woe is me, self-pity state of mind. And the only way to do that was to focus on every little thing that I could to be grateful for. And so I just encourage you, if you're struggling in your faith and you're struggling in your walk with God and you're feeling like shame and self-pity and guilt, like, oh, I don't read my Bible enough. Oh, I don't pray enough. Oh, I don't, I'm spending too much time on social media, whatever it is that's gotten you feeling like, oh, I'm just never going to get this thing right. It's a walk. Salvation isn't a one-time prayer. Salvation is something that we have to walk out. We have to walk out with the help of the Lord. Personally, I believe that when Jesus was talking about being born again, that we can also tie that to the verses he talks about, unless you become like a little child, you won't see the kingdom of heaven, right? So born again and become like a little child. And what I found is that the more that I literally cried like a little child to Jesus for what I want from him, or what I want him to do in my life, the more intimacy that I have with him, and the more he honors that. Because you see, some of us are adults and we need to stop being adults. With Jesus, you need to be like a little child. At the beginning of 2024, I literally started just to cry tears, and beg him for healing from certain wounds in myself that had been around far too long and caused far too many problems for me. Even my frustrations, I expressed them to him, saying, look at how long I've been asking and pleading for healing, and I haven't really seen it manifest yet. And just last week, I had some major breakthrough, and so just keep crying out to God. But don't be an adult, be a child, be like a child. That's how you know you're born again, because he is your loving father and ultimate provider. He's the one that has all power and all authority. And so when you trust in him, he will come through. Now, within his timing, it might take a while, but if you do treat him like a loving father and you just cry like a little child and beg and plead, and and it's not outside of his will, especially if you're pleading for healing and you're pleading for closeness and intimacy with him, and for the good things that he wants to give you anyway, then he will work it out. It will happen. And not enough people do that. Not enough people go to him like a little child with with the desires of their heart. So I encourage you to do that. All right. Have a great day. God bless y'all.